So when it's go time, there's another payment due on your gold-plated laptop. So we gotta make sure it's secure. When it's time to really get into the story and write, what does that look like for you? What's a writing day look like?
Now that I'm not teaching full time, um, I come home, take a break, mental break. I'm trying to get back in the gym, so I'll either go to the gym for an hour, take a mental break, and I'll write from 5 to 8. So I picked up this manuscript, and what I did was I looked at what I had and salvaged what I liked and threw the rest away. But I'll just write.
Like away, or just put it in another file where you can access it if you need it?
Yeah, it's in another file. I always label draft 1, 2, 3. And so I fight against the urge of sabotaging myself with the questions. What point of view? First, present, first tense, past. I mean, present tense, past tense. I will find every reason to oh, well, maybe let me research. Stop this. I'm fighting against the habit of just parlaying around, right? So I was set 5 to 8. Sometimes I can't make it the whole way through, but that's my time to write. And if I can't write anymore, then I will definitely start back from the beginning and read and make questions. So I'll write. So I'll write the possible scenes in my journal. Like, this is what I can see happening, and I'll write it. I have to skip around because I wish I could write linear. That's what I'm trying to do. But I have to skip around because I can't figure out what's going on in the story yet. So I'll give my permission to just write a sloppy draft, and I'm writing a scene between her and her friend, trying to develop that character. What would it look like on the first day of school if that's when the scene takes place? What does it look like in the classroom? Write a scene about this. So I'm writing out scenes, which I know have to kind of combine into chapters or whatever. But my mind is not yet ready to write a whole chapter. That will come back in the revision where I add in setting and things I'm weaker at. Setting I'm weaker at, and inner monologue I'm weaker at. So I have to stop and think about it. And that's what I'll do when I can't write anymore. I'll go to that chapter where, she's in this class and she notices that she's probably one of the few Black people. What does she thinks about this? Does she notice anybody looking at her? Does she feel a certain way? So then that's when I'll add in those things, and I'll make a note about it. Or how does she feel when Dad speaks to her? What's going through her mind? Then I'll go back and add those things in. If I just can't free write anymore about that scene. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're writing. You're just doing it kind of in layers.
Yeah. I wish I knew a better process. Like with Genesis, and this is what I'll also do is I'll go back and write out for my sanity each scene I have. I'll write out where it is. I'm trying to keep a timeline, but I think that comes at last. I struggle with timing so much with Genesis that I had keeping up with the track of days and the weeks that passed. So I know that's my weakness, and I'll get a calendar later, but I just kind of want to see what happens here. So I'll write the day, what scene it is, who's in it, what happens, what questions I have, and what questions are answered. So if there's a question,
scenes are well planned before you're ever sitting down and writing. It was a dark and stormy night, and your paragraph.
This is after I go back and read them.
Okay.
I'll go back and read them. I'll write, okay. Or this scene is, I wrote it outside the gym. It's in the gym, and it also moves outside of the school. It's how many pages, how many, the questions I have, how many Black students in the classroom, how many this. Oh, but I answered this And as I go back and as I continue reading, I answer that and I check it off because
Okay.
I'll check it off and like answered in, seen, blah blah blah. Then what the topic is about. Oh, this is the scene that dad takes Sydney to his job. Oh yeah, what happens here? I write it down. What bothers me? What question that might arise here? Why did he bring him to the job? Why to meet the people he worked with? Does this mean something like, is that a plot that's going to develop later? Why did I include that scene? And it might be something that cut out because it doesn't move the story at all. It's just a scene that I wrote.
And
So
is this draft two you're doing this, or is this while you're drafting one before you know the full ending?
because I don't have it written out like everything. So now that I am in the part where I got like over 100 pages, I could draft a little bit more. I got a little bit more done. So now I can write first act, second act, third act, what I think is going to happen and why, right?
Okay.
May not happen, but it may. Like in this story, what is the event that she's protesting? I don't know yet. Like, is it somebody close to her, somebody that's in the community, somebody that's not? And this depends on how much is going to be at stake, right? So I'm still trying to figure out the story of it. So like I'm working on another one in the meantime to give me space to kind of catch up with my thoughts. I know that I want a story about a girl and her grandmother. I lost my grandmother before Genesis came out. Genesis was supposed to be out by the time, but 2017. I lost her in 2018, that fall. And she was like one of those women that we were at the family reunion and this man kept looking at me during the service. Every Sunday of our family reunion is when we have a church service before everybody leaves. And the preacher stopped the service. And he was like, I just keep looking at you. And I was like, oh Lord, he gonna know I'm the biggest sinner. Oh my God, he gonna call me out in front of everybody. But he said, I keep looking at you because you have a calling on your life. You're chosen to do something. And my grandmother was sitting up front and she turned around and she saw it was me. I promise you, every time I talked to her on the phone, she was like, Lee, what do you think that preacher meant when he said that you were chosen? I'm like, I don't know, Grandma. She's like, I think it's got something to do with your writing. Every not fail, like, Lee, remember when I preached? I was like, yep, it was just 2 weeks ago, Granny. I think it has something to do, like she was harping on my writing so much that the book didn't come out. And she didn't ever get the chance to see it. I have this feeling like those last days I was in the hospital with her, feeding her, and I just feel like I want a story about a mom and her grandmother and how we deal with grief. And so my daughter was like, have them take an epic adventure. And I was like, well, how do I have them take an epic adventure? Like if she's old and she's sick, so I'm like, how does that work? So now I know that I want this story. Perhaps it'll have an epic adventure in it if I could work it out. But I know like I'm writing the character name, Dahlia, grandma, old, grief. But there's more. What's going to make them connect and what's going to get in the way? And dad, he loves her, but that's not the mom. They're not. So I'm trying to plot out my characters first. Mom, how about Dahlia's already dealing with grief, so that makes it even more of a challenge for her to have to deal with her mom. Mom's deceased. But I need more characters because I need some conflict. auntie? How about she holds something against mom? So we're dealing with, let's talk about forgiveness. Yes, we need forgiveness. So that's a bigger theme. There's got to be forgiveness, because when in grief, I've been through it enough. I know I have to forgive myself. My dad died. I had to forgive myself for feeling like I let him die. My brother was killed. I don't know if my last words to him were the best words. And then when Granny died, she wanted me to come back to the hotel, and not the hospital, and stay with her. It was storming. I did not come to stay with her that night. And I was like thinking I had more time. So forgiveness, like my granny left messages like, I need you here. I'm scared. I did not go to the hospital because of freaking storm. And how come I could and I did not have that opportunity to stay with her. I had to have forgiveness. So I'm like, I got to work this feeling out. So I have drawn this mapping out. I need to know, how am I going to get to grieving at the end, but forgiveness? How does this aunt settle with her forgiveness with her? How does Dahlia settle with her forgiveness of forgiving herself that her mom died? So I'm trying to figure out this. Like, I am drawing it out before I even write a story there with this one. And I'm trying to figure out. So then I moved from that, because I still don't know about this epic trip that my daughter suggested. Like, how can that would sound so great, right? And that would be the trouble I'm looking for, right? No trouble, no story. She sets off on this, and what if the major theme that Granny's hospitalized? So yeah, that'd be great. How can I make it work? So relax. Let's start with the opening, which I think is the opening. And who is Dahlia? And why does she feel like she is not, like, feeling with her feelings about her mom passing, and how long ago it was, and how is life with her and dad? So I got to start in the middle somewhere, and dad, is he still grieving, and how does he handle this? So I'm writing that out.
So how do you decide your opening? Because when I'm doing like a straightforward plot, this is a haunted house story. We open with, let's buy the haunted house. That makes sense. But with this, where you've got just a storm of characters and emotions and things that you've got to move into a cohesive plot, how do you pick that starting scene? And how often is that starting scene that you pick actually the starting scene in the final book?
This starting scene, because I just started with her Dahlia just speaking. Yeah, it wasn't I just start. Like, I didn't plan on it. And I don't know if it'll be there. The Sydney book, I just started with, okay, what's she feeling like today? Genesis stayed. After every revision, it stayed. It started with her coming home from school, seeing her stuff evicted. It stayed, right, in the action of it, because I knew that she was dealing with evictions, right?
That's a great opening. Pulls you right in, because you're immediately, oh my, this poor woman, or this poor girl. What's going to happen next? My God, what a terrible start she's got.
Yeah, that stayed the same. I just put it right in, and I guess I could have started with her being in school. I guess I could have started with her in the middle of dad coming home gambling. I don't know. It just, I wish I had something in depth. It's just like, maybe that's the only thing I get divinely. I don't know. Like,
well, sometimes I find this. I don't know if you find this, but sometimes it's like dousing for water with the stick. Like, you're going around, you just feel like, oh, it's here. This is the spot. I don't know if that metaphor holds true for what you're up to or not.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I think it is. It's just feeling it. Wherever I start is, I know there's usually they say wherever you start, you're throwing it out anyway. That, yeah. You say,
I've heard that.
yeah, that's what they say, because it's no action there. So I try to start with Genesis, where there will be the action. And I don't know if my grandmother book would be that way or not, because I feel like I need to start with the moment before grandma arrives on the scene.
And going in, all the emotions that you're bringing from your life that you need to process. And so you're from day one, you've got them. I know I'm going to work these into the book. Whereas I'm starting with my plot, and I get to the end, and I start breaking down and crying, like, oh my God, it was me the whole time, and now I know that thing I was dealing with, and I hadn't acknowledged it until I get there. Whereas going in that's what you're going to be processing. That sounds much healthier, honestly.
Well, you know what? Like, so I know that, like, my daughter deals with mental health issues. So I know I want to speak to that, the anxiety, depression. And unfortunately, I got to kind of not have every book with the same issues. I don't know. I feel like I'm working out issues myself, like, because it's in both of these stories I just told you about. The anxiety and depression and grief. Grief brings on depression. I was dealing with it when I found out that my daughter tried to commit suicide. I mean, I had to go get counseling, and I realized the depression runs in my family. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm working out things, and maybe that's why. And I lost my dad, I lost my brother, I lost so many people back to back, and maybe that's why grief is still coming up. That I'm working out these issues that I haven't yet sorted out. I don't know, because I was thinking about it. It's like, wow, my stories feel like they're dealing with the same type of emotions. And perhaps, like with Genesis, I needed to deal with self-love. And that's where it came from. I'm dealing with all the self-hate, and it's affecting me, and maybe I need to deal with it, this internalized risk system, and put it out there and heal. And perhaps I'm dealing with the mental health issues that's going on, and the grieving that's going on, and wanting to speak up when you feel like you don't have a voice. That's why I'm trying to work out. And maybe that's
it's going in that you can include it in your journals and your outlines and everything. That, hey, I had this stuff. I go ahead and admit my own human frailty and weakness that this has to be dealt with, and I'm going to put it on the table. That's fascinating.
Wait a minute. You've interviewed tons of authors. I'm not the only one that thinks like this. I hope not.
No, but I always make the joke that if I ever talk to 3 authors in a row that are all successful and all do the exact same thing, I'm canceling this podcast. I'm going to start doing that. So there's just so many different ways to approach and do, similar things. Like, you talk to enough readers, enough writers, you get some variation of read a lot and write a lot. Because guess what? Everybody has to do those 2 things. But within those parameters of things that have to happen going into works, no, I think you're the first person I've talked to, at least, that admitted that they knew exactly what emotions and what parts of their life they needed to deal with within a story going in.
Wow. So, like with Genesis, that was the hard part, because I used this book called the Scene Book, and I was writing out just scenes that the emotion wasn't flowing through. And my editor was like, the emotion is not connecting, right? And so I had to write on these big papers. I wrote each scene out and the emotions that were in each scene.
These are like up on a wall someplace?
Yep, I have a clear wall over here, and I put up my big papers, and I wrote each scene down I posted it on actually Facebook and Instagram, and then you see all the sticky notes and everything. But yeah, so the opening may have a scene like with Genesis. She's excited, right? And then there's like embarrassment. And then there's like at the end, she's furious that dad has done this again. Well, it ends. So I picked it up with the next scene. Not necessarily the chapter, but I thought it was a chapter. I had to build up to it. Like, I can't just have a different emotion at the opening of that scene. Unless it's she still has to carry on. Even if it's 2 days, I need to touch on the fact that she was still furious with dad. So I wasn't connecting all of these. It was like, okay, we're over it. Nope, we're not. We got to go back and touch on it. So that's where I know, not necessarily every emotion, but I feel like I know the bigger emotions that are going to be in there. Like with death, you got your joy, you got your shame and guilt that we all experience, and there's that whole pain. But so I know the bigger emotions, but as they go from scene to scene, that'll evolve as I know what happens.
So where's I'm going to call it the juice, but that's the wrong term. Where's the thing that keeps you going? Because for me, I know it's finding out. I have an idea what the ending is going to be, but it's finding out how the characters are going to get there and how they're going to overcome their problem or fail to, and who's going to die, who's going to live, all that fun stuff. But when you know all of this going in, what is it that gets you excited, that keeps you writing long enough to finish the manuscript?
I haven't figured that one out yet because I have not finished this manuscript. Like, I need help. I guess I want to the beginning of it. Like I get to a point where I get to the middle and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what happens.
But I'm sure you had that happen with Genesis as well, and you obviously finish it and finish it again and finish it again until you had the final version.
I think the idea of discovery excites me too. When it's like a puzzle and you get the piece and like it goes right there. You're like, I didn't know that. Like, it's a whole discovery. I'll have my jazz going, my John Coltrane going, and I'm writing along, and it's like, oh my gosh, is that what she's feeling? And I think what gets me going, another thing that gets me going is when I talk to someone or if I'm out and I get a revelation about something. I'm like, oh yes, it's just like that little burst of epiphany. If I'm at a play and I get something and I'm like, that connects back to my story, and it's just like, oh God, let me hurry up. It's magical to get to write that down. That
I recognize. That's the same. Okay. That makes sense.
Thank you. Because I was like, I feel like a one only, like I gotta read some more books on how to write. Because I'm like struggling. Yeah.
The proof is on the pudding. Your book works. So as I'm listening to you, I'm like, I know that this process ends with a fascinating book, and there are points where I recognize as either that's similar to my process or that's similar to somebody else's process. But there are other parts that it's the same thing, but it's the inverse. It's rotated. You're starting with character versus I'm starting with plot. But we're still coming across a lot of the same milestones along the way. So there's enough there that's similar. Oh, isn't the world vast and interesting? There's so many different ways to do the same thing. That's all. I don't mean to make you feel self-conscious whatsoever. Hear me loud and clear. Genesis Begins Again absolutely works, and I have no doubt that the grandma story, when you get it there, is going to work. And I'm just interested in the process that gets it there, and when I hear it's so different than what I'm used to, and I know that your book comes out the way it comes out. But if somebody smart talking, focus. There's something that Alicia's doing that if you did, you could be a little bit smarter.
I wish I could just see it all. Like somebody said they had a dream and it was just all there. Or I'm just like, how do you do that? But it's not me. I see things in snatches and it's like revealed at times. And I just have to fill in the blanks and hope it works.
What really kills me are and I'm not going to author shame, but the people that write, I write a romance every month, every 2 months. I know the story going in. I sit down, I write it, I revise it, turn it in, next book. That's who I want to, in my next life, that's the kind of writer I want to be. I'm not. I've given up trying to make myself into that kind of writer, but it's like, that sounds convenient. That sounds like regular royalty checks coming.
That's what I want. I keep thinking, I want to do something. I need to learn how your way, the plot, because I would love to write a small, some chapter books to just keep, something fun and adventurous. That way I can focus when I want to on the heavy stuff and just give myself a break from being in these deep emotions. I need to.
Maybe, but I think we all write the kind of books that, you said that when we started that the thing you bring to a story is that Alicia D. Williamsness. And it sounds like this is the essentialness of the Alicia D. Williamsness. This is how you get there.
Yeah, thank you.